and the time is finally here. The time for the best books of 2020. Now, it's only the end of November and I've already read as many books as I've read in the entire 2019. So we have quite a lot of books to talk about, especially because I loved so many of the books that I read this year. So, the first book I would like to talk about, number 20 on this list, is Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. Now, I love Maggie Stiefvater's writing, and I really, really loved this book. But the main thing that I loved about this book was the relationship between our main character and another person. I loved how it was written. I thought it was wonderful and so heartwarming, and that was why this book made my favourite list, because I don't think I enjoyed it so far as much as I love The Raven Cycle. I'm open to it being just as good. There's another book coming out next year, so let's hope. Now, the next book that I loved in the year of 2020, in 2020, is Daughters of Jubilation by Carolee Corcoran. This book, once again, for the same reason, it made my favourite books on this list for the same reason. The relationship in this book was written so wonderfully and heartwarmingly that I couldn't not put it on this list. I mean, the relationship has stuck with me since October. I love it. I think it's one of the best written relationships ever. So, yep, that's also on the list. The next book is Mangoes and Mistletoe by Adriana Herrera, which is a wonderful Christmas short story. Now, I'm talking about the books from December of last year mostly because I didn't get to talk about them in that video. So I think my sort of year, my book year starts in December. This book, guys. This book is the Great British Bake Off queer romance Latinx representation that you want, and it's a Christmas book. Need I say more? It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant, and I highly recommend it. The next book on this list is The Agency by Y.S. Lee. Now, my favorite kind of book is a book that has sort of historical elements, or is set in the past, or there's time travel. There are interesting women in it that are the center of attention, and yeah, and it's funny, or it has some sort of comedy twist. Now, that type of book is usually written by white authors, and that was not the case here. The main character is a person of color and the author is a person of color, and this book was everything. This book was everything that I love about that genre, and it's also everything in terms of just being a really well-written book. The romance, once again, had me completely hooked. Like, I was shipping people, and I was heartbroken, and I need the second book. And the next book in that sort of order is here for the same reason, and that is Lady Ruth Chapelstone and the Clockwork Suitor by Elsie Mawson. And it is here because it is once again a Victorian inventor written by an autistic author who's also Ace, the character, and she's brilliant, and it's wonderful, and it's funny and engaging, and I had a blast of a time reading that book. Now, number 15 on the list, that is Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, which is an excellently written thriller, which had me freaking out. I was so scared. I was reading it in the dark. I read it page to page. I didn't have to audiobook it because I was engaged the entire time, and it's one of those thrillers that you want to read over and over again, and therefore it's on this list. Number 14 is a thriller that's even better than Turn of the Key, and that is When No One Is Watching by Elisa Cole. This book, once again, had me completely freaking out, super engaged, read it in a day, and I can't stop thinking about it. So I highly, highly suggest that you read this book. The next book on this list is Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames. Now this is a book about a ragtag group of mercenaries, I think, who have retired, have their lives, and then one of the members of the band, his daughter gets kidnapped, and they have to go get the band back together, and it's so funny, it's brilliantly written, and I had a wonderful time reading that book. The next book on this list is Little Black Bird by Anna Kirshner. Now I have a reading blog reading this book, and this is a book written by an aromantic and ace, I believe, Polish author living in Sweden that explores the lack of sexual attraction. It's a book with magic. It is a fast-paced book. The reason why this book is on here is because seeing a character who's Eastern European, written by an Eastern European author who's also ace, means the world to me, and this book was always going to make it on one of the most important books of ever. So yeah, I highly suggest that you pick it up because it was a really, really engaging and interesting read. The next book on this list is Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. Now this is my favourite middle grade that I read this year. This book was such a surprise. I didn't see it coming. It had me hooked from the start. It's quite dense and I still loved it. It is brilliantly crafted, wonderfully engaging, and I kept thinking about it for days after I finished it. The next book on this list is A Trail Through Time by Jodi Taylor. Now, me and Jodi Taylor have a rickety relationship, okay? I read A Second Chance by her earlier in the year, and I liked most of it, and then I hated bits of it. So, I think that's just me. We don't always get along, but this entire book was brilliant. The Jodi Taylor books are books about a group of time-traveling historians who tend to blow things up and get into trouble and survive on tea. How can I not love this book? So I read this constantly throughout, like from when I started it to when I finished it. I was a little bit sick, so I stayed in bed the entire time and I just kept reading. Yeah, loved this book so much, and I'm really glad that I read it. The next book, so now we are on number 9 of this list, and the next book is The Lost Future of Pepper Harrow by Natasha Pulley. Now this book was so full of longing. I kid you not, literally I've written into the book a couple of times, oh my god, the longing. The characters are written brilliantly. The relationship is heartwarming but also heartbreaking at the same time. And you love everyone and you care for everyone, and everyone is so precious. And it gave me so many emotions, and I highly recommend that you read this book. It's also historical, it's Victorian, but not written in the Victorian era. Very important. The next book that I would like to talk about is Upright Woman Wanted by Sarah Gailey, which is a short story, and it is about queer librarians in, I believe, a futuristic America, maybe, or like American-inspired fantasy world. I don't completely remember. But I remember loving that book. It was one of my favourite books that I read that week, and it was in the summer. I cosplayed that book and it was brilliant. I thought it was a brilliantly written story, and it's one of my favourites. It doesn't always have to be a reason for it to be my favourite. Like, I don't even completely remember what it was that made it my favourite thing now that I say it, but it is my favourite, and it's exactly there on that list in that order. Now, the 7th book on this list is Full Disclosure by Camryn Garrett. This book is a book that I've read in February of this year, and it has remained one of my favourite books of the year until now. It is a brilliant book. It is very, very sensitively written. It talks about HIV, it talks about musical theatre, it talks about relationships. There's an ace character in there, and it is really, really, really important and really brilliant. And it's not one of those books that are important but aren't also amazing stories. It manages to be both, and I highly recommend that everyone ever reads it. Now, number 6, okay, A Deadly Inside Scoop by Abby Collette. This book, okay, I was looking for sort of detective stories with people of colour in it, and I stumbled across this book, which is about a lady working in an ice cream shop, trying to sell ice cream in the winter because you can eat soup in the summer, so why can't you eat ice cream in the winter? And she gets involved in like a murder and starts snooping, and it's a detective story, and this book was absolute magic, and every bit of it is absolutely perfect. The family relationships, I literally just realised in this year that one of my favourite things in books is if a family relationship really gets to me, if I love it, and this definitely did that. The family relationship was brilliant. All of her family were amazing and wonderful, and I care about them so much. The concept is brilliant, and I keep thinking about it, and I have hopefully by now that this video comes out already made ice cream in the winter, because this book has completely converted me to making ice cream all year round, because why not? You can have soup all year round. I want to reread this book already, so I think this book is one of the books that has stuck with me the longest in terms of how well I remember the emotions and the reasons why I loved this book. Now we're getting to literally like the books that I keep moving around and shifting around because I love them all so much. Number 5 is The Perfect Rhythm by Jay, which is a book about a rundown pop singer who returns to her hometown, reconnects with her family, and sort of finds a new outlook on life, also falls in love with someone. However, the plot twist is that the pop star is queer and the person she falls in love with is Ace. And this book meant so much to me. Honestly, I can't explain why it is so high up, and I would probably put it up higher as time goes on, because this book helped me so much, and I loved it so much, and every time I would listen to it, it would just bring me so much joy. And this was the last book that I read before I made this video, and I already had a whole list. I had a list, guys, and I was ready to film. And then this book comes along and it mixes everything up. This book managed to put down concepts in one sentence that I've been struggling to word for years. This book has managed to be consistently warm and fluffy in a way that I didn't think Ace books would ever be, because it is so conventionally, predictably that, and unapologetically fluffy. And this book was just perfect, and I just recommend it. Number 4. Okay, With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. Now, this book is so heartwarming. It is about a woman who is a teenage mother, and she's struggling to balance sort of caring for her child and pursuing a cooking career, which she'd like to do. And it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful and heartwarming. It has recipes in it, and I think what this book did that was really important to me is that it made me think of my own family a lot. Not because, which is interesting, we don't have anything really in common, but it reminded me of my own family, And I think that's really interesting. Like, I didn't have to empathize in specifically being similar to this person to it be, because it was written so well that I empathized anyway. Like, I could see myself even though I didn't look anything like it. And I think that's why this book, it can speak to so many people. And I think that's a sign of a really, really good book. Now, number 3. Okay. Is this really number 3? Okay, all of these books from The Perfect Rhythm are number 1, but I had to number them somehow, okay? And that is A Phoenix First Must Burn, edited by Patrice Caldwell. Now, I have never gotten through a short story collection before, and since. I've tried before, and I've tried since. But this book is absolute magic. There's one story in this that is one of my favorite stories I have ever read. But I loved every single story in this book. This book brought me so much joy, and since the summer, every time I think about it, I just get like a wave of optimism. And that is, all of these books stick with me so well, and I think that is why there's so many on this list. Yeah, this book is sunshine in a book. If you have not read this book, what are you doing? Please read it. I just want to share the love and the sunshine and the optimism that this book is. Doesn't mean that it's just purely optimistic, but that it evokes optimism and happiness in me. Okay, number 2 of this list is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, which I've read in June. And this book, okay, this is one of the best written fantasy books ever. It is brilliant. There's some excellent lines in here. The characters are wonderful. The story is engaging. I love this book. And yeah, that's it. I can't really go any further on this. I'm not sure about one particular bit of representation in this. And I'm not someone to judge it anyway, but other than that, I loved this book so much, and I loved what it tried to do. It just delivered. It was just so good. Again, highly recommend it. Now, we have some honourable mentions. Dread Nation by Justina Ireland, which is a book that I read in February of this year. It's a wonderful historical zombie book, and I think Justina Ireland is a fantastic creator. The second book is The Astonishing Colour of After by Emily X.R. Pan. Now, this book had a huge effect on me. I was terrified. I got nightmares. And it wasn't even a thriller or a horror or anything. Just the depth of emotion and sorrow in this book and the eerie atmosphere somehow got into my subconscious and really messed with my head. I love books that have an effect on me. The third honourable mention is Loveless by Alice Oseman. Number 4 is A Tudor Christmas by Siobhan Clarke and Alison Weir, which is the first book I read in 2020. It is a non-fiction about the history of Christmas. And lastly, Homie by Denise Smith. Now, Homie was one of the first poetry collections that I ever read, definitely just for fun, and it reintroduced me to the amazingness and power of poetry collections in general. And now, the last book on this list, which I don't own, but I am planning to get the physical version as soon as possible, and that is A Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. Now, this book is eerie. It is brilliantly written. It has an amazing family relationship. It has an amazing romance. It deals with so many things and is written in such a way and has somehow stuck with me as the best book of the year since July, I think. Everything that was supposed to work in that book worked, and therefore it has to be number 1 on this list. thank you so much for watching. That's it. That's the end of the list. Thank you for watching. I hope you had fun. Tell me what your favourite books are, and I will see you in the next video. I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season, and I will see you soon. Bye.